So, what can I make from grain? There's a lot of things that I can do. If I start with my grain, I mill that grain to expose my carbohydrates, I boil it, I gelatinize it, which allows me to extract the carbohydrates from the grain. Once I've got that carbohydrates using enzymes, either concentrated or natural enzymes that I find from my malt that I'm using, I can do a starch conversion, breaking the carbohydrates down firstly to dextrins or complex sugars, and then these dextrins gets broken down into simple sugars, which is my fructose and my glucose, my simple fermentable sugars. To that I add yeast, and that ferments to a beer. So I turn my grain into beer through starch conversion and fermentation. Now this is a distiller's beer. We're not talking about normal drinking beer here. The big differences being we're not worried about foaming properties, we're not worried about the residual sugars for sweetness, we don't use hops, and we try to get the maximum amount of alcohol out of the grain that we can. We're not happy with 5% or 6%, we want 10, 12% in our fermentations. That's what we get when we apply the principles of distillation fermentation, distillation starch fermentation, or starch conversion to grain fermentations. So if I take that beer, depending on how I distill the beer, I can get different products. So if I distill to a high percentage alcohol where I distill out all the flavor, then I make vodka. If I distill to a lower percentage alcohol where I retain flavor from the grain, then I make a grain spirit. So again, I end up with two different products, depending on the choice that I've made. Distill out all the flavor at a high percentage, I make vodka from my beer. Distill at a low percentage, where I retain flavor, then I'm making grain spirit from the same beer. So the same fermentation can give me vodka or a grain spirit depending on how I distill it. At what percentage do I distill it? Do I retain flavor or do I not retain flavor? If I then take that grain spirit, which has retained the flavor of the raw material, and I barrel age it, well, then I've made a whiskey. So again, a choice, turning the grain spirit into whiskey through the process of barrel aging. Whiskey must retain the flavor of the beer, which retains the flavor of the grain, but by barrel aging, I convert the neutral spirits into whiskey. If I then take my vodka or my grain spirit and I add juniper to that, with or without other flavors, then I've made gin. Now normally we use a vodka or neutral spirit, we add our juniper to it and we create gin, but we can also do a grain spirit, a non-neutral base, and add juniper to it and create a gin. That would be a Genever, Dutch style gin, where I can taste the grain along with the juniper and other botanicals. I can then also take the vodka or the gin or the grain spirit and add sugar and a flavorant to it. That would give me a spirit aperitif. So the difference between a spirit aperitif and a liqueur we'll discuss just now. But a spirit aperitif can be made from vodka, from gin or from a grain spirit, but not from a whiskey. We cannot use a whiskey to make a spirit aperitif purely because we're not allowed to add wood to a spirit aperitif in South Africa. There is not allowed to be any wood in a spirit aperitif under South African law, so a whiskey cannot be turned into a spirit aperitif. Vodka, gin or grain spirit, however, can. I can add more sugar and I can add a flavorant to it. Then I've made a liqueur. Again, using a vodka, gin or grain spirit, I can turn that into a liqueur. Now the difference between a spirit aperitif and a liqueur has gotten kind of fuzzy. After March this year, when the law changed again, it's very difficult to distinguish between the two. Prior to March, spirit aperitif had to have a minimum of 75 grams of sugar per liter of product, where liqueur had to have a minimum of 100 grams of sugar per liter of product. Now they both have a minimum of 75 grams per liter of product. The determining factor between a spirit aperitif and a liqueur is now the alcohol percentage, the ABV percentage. A liqueur can be as low as 15% ABV in your product. I can also take that vodka, gin or grain spirit and turn it into a spirit cooler. Spirit cooler has added juice or a mixer to it. So if I want to take a gin and tonic premix, I take my gin, I add my tonic and I sell it as is, as a premix. That's a spirit cooler. I can also take vodka and fruit juice. That would also be a spirit cooler. So from my original grain, I can make a whole bunch of different products. There's a lot that I can do with this grain. I can turn it into vodka, into grain spirit, into gin, into whiskey, into spirit aperitifs, liqueurs, or spirit coolers. All from the same raw material, all from the same fermentation. Just based on the choices I'm making in terms of distillation and spirit enhancement. What do I make out of this product? Now, there's been a lot of questions asked for us in the past about, can I make money distilling? Can I make money turning my raw material into alcohol opposed to selling the raw material as is? And we're getting more and more inquiries from grain farmers specifically. So let's look at it. 1 ton of yellow maize delivered in November 2018 based on the current SAFEX pricing is 2,480 Rand. So if you sell your grain, your 1 ton of grain, you're going to get 2,480 Rand for it. Now if I turn that into alcohol, that 1 ton of maize, 1,000 kilograms of maize, will give me 60 bricks after conversion. That means there's 600 kilograms of sugar, and that will be in a 2,800 litre fermentation. So 2,800 litre fermentation with 600 kilograms of sugar will give me a fermentation strength of 12.5% ABV. Now out of that 2,800 litre fermentation, I'll get about 2,660 litres of usable fermentation out. We allow about 5% for sedimentation. So that's 2,660 litres at 12.5% ABV. That means that fermentation contains 332.5 litres of absolute alcohol. Now recovery rate comes into play. Depending on the type of still that I use, my recovery rate can vary. An Olympic still, 65 to 70% recovery rate. Fractionating reflux column still or multi-column still, it gives you a 90 to 95% recovery rate if you run it properly. Now the recovery rate is the amount of usable alcohol that I get out. Some of the alcohol will be contaminated by heads, some of the alcohol will be contaminated by tails. I can't get everything out and use everything, but the amount of usable alcohol I can get out, that's my recovery rate. So assuming a 90% recovery rate, conservatively speaking for a fractionating reflux column still, that gives me 299 litres of recovered absolute alcohol. 299 litres of recovered absolute alcohol of a usable quality. Diluted down to 43% ABV gives me 695 litres of product. Bottle that product in 750ml bottles gives me 927 bottles of product. 927 750ml bottles at 43% alcohol. That's what I can get out of 1 ton of grain, 1 ton of maize, specifically yellow maize. That's what I can get. Now, obviously there's a lot of costs involved to do this. There's electricity cost, water cost, yeast cost, nutrients, enzymes, pH adjustment, bottles, labels, packaging, closures, excise tax, capex, opex, and labor. All of these costs are involved, but they're all production costs. I'm not interested in that now. In our business training, in our advanced business training, we go into quite a bit of depth in terms of feasibility studies and cash flow analysis. We can break this down to the cent, exactly what it's going to cost to produce the product. But I want to know how much money will I get from my grain instead of selling it as is. If I turn it into alcohol, how much money will I get for it? So, if I sell the grain as is, I get 2,480 Rand per ton. If I make 25 Rand per bottle profit, I'm getting 23,175 Rand for my ton of grain. If I make 50 Rand per bottle of profit, I make 46,350 Rand for my ton of grain. 75 Rand per bottle profit gives me 69,525 Rand profit or income for my ton of grain. And at 100 Rand per bottle profit, I'm making 92,700 Rand off my 1 ton of grain. 92,700 opposed to 2,480. Now, how do I determine how much profit I can make? Well, that comes down to branding, comes down to marketing, brand identity, emotional connection between the consumer and your product. All of these factors will determine how much profit can you actually make off a bottle, but it can be done. And we handle those, of course, in our marketing training and business training as well, is how do you actually position your product for a target market, to penetrate that target market and be able to achieve these profits. So, answering the question, what can I make from grain? What can I create out of grain? Profit, satisfaction, quality, and enjoyment. Profit is there to be made. As long as you can sell your product, you will make profit out of it. That's a guarantee. Satisfaction for both you in what you are doing and for your clients in enjoying a good quality product. Quality, because that's important and that's what's lacking in the world these days, is quality, getting back to basics and making something truly wonderful that people can enjoy. And then lastly, enjoyment. Enjoyment for your customers and enjoyment for yourself. Doing something that you love and being able to make money off it. So, I hope this has been educational. I hope you learned something. I hope it answered some questions. And hopefully we'll see you around one of these days. Thank you.